The honourable member for Calgary-South East.
Yesterday, the federal government introduced their own accelerated coal phase-out plan. Instantly, what we saw was Nova Scotia negotiated a deal where they don't actually have to reduce their emissions. They were able to introduce a cap-and-trade system. While this federal plan still hurts Alberta, it seems they're willing to work with the coal industry. But honestly, Deputy Premier, I never thought I would see the day that a Trudeau government would offer up a better plan to the energy sector than the government of Alberta. Premier, when are you going to start fighting for Alberta, our coal industry, and our oil and gas industry?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Parks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the honourable member for the question. Of course, Alberta already has a coal phase-out plan in place, and that is why the federal government will not be imposing a plan on this province. We will have a Made in Alberta plan instead. That plan will stabilize prices for consumers, as we saw today. It will not unnecessarily strand capital, and it will ensure that we are making appropriate investments in communities to transition, something, Mr. Speaker, that the previous government utterly ignored.
Well, that's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, because when we're already at 15% renewables, we're the first jurisdiction to put a price on carbon. And quite honestly, you should stop with the rhetoric that the Prime Minister is going to bow to you and everybody else will have to take what they put in. You know, listen, the federal government recognizes that coal is an important part of industry, like countries like Japan, Germany, and Denmark. Why do you hate coal producers so much?
Caution again. Be aware, all members, the preambles. Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, we have committed to a phase-out of coal already set by the previous federal government, and accelerating the post-2030 in such a way that makes sure that we are not having a plan imposed on us by other jurisdictions, but we have something that works for our deregulated electricity system, Mr. Speaker, and that protects consumers, Mr. Speaker. And so that is why we are phasing in 70% natural gas and 30% renewables to take advantage of the natural advantages that Alberta has with cheap and plentiful natural gas and excellent renewable resources, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member.
Given that coal communities, oil and gas communities from Hinton to Hanna, Castor to Cold Lake, Calgary to Edmonton to Edson, Deputy Premier, you say you're working in good faith with these communities as you implement your policies, but being booed at a provincial convention last week shows otherwise, and I'm sorry that you got booed. But why are you keeping these families and communities who built this province in the dark?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, the Honourable Minister of Economic Development is leading a consultation with the affected communities, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we are putting workers and communities at the centre of this, which the previous government did not do, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we have committed funds within the budget papers. The member will note, and we will continue to do so, Mr. Speaker. And, you know, the fact of the matter is we are doing this because the science of the health effects of coal are as settled as the science of climate change, Mr. Speaker.